Have you ever looked at a truly groundbreaking company or invention and wondered, how did they even think of that? Well, it's not magic. It's a specific way of thinking, a powerful mental model that today's greatest innovators use as their secret weapon. We're going to break it all down. This is first principles thinking.
So, to get our heads around this, let's start with a really simple, almost absurd question. Why in the world did it take humanity nearly 5,000 years to put wheels on a suitcase? I mean, seriously, it seems so obvious now, right? But the answer tells you everything you need to know about a major flaw in how we usually solve problems.
Just look at this timeline. The wheel, invented around 3500 BC. People have been carrying stuff in bags since at least ancient Rome. But the patent for the first rolling suitcase, 1970? That's an incredible gap. For millennia, we had both of the ingredients, the wheel and the bag, sitting right there, but nobody put them together. The reason why is fascinating.
It's because for centuries, we were all stuck thinking about the form. Everyone was asking, how can we make a better bag? And that gave us small improvements, sure. Things like zippers, nylon fabric, better shoulder straps, but that's just tweaking what already exists. The real game changer came when someone finally ignored the bag itself and asked about its function. What are we actually trying to do here? We're trying to move things from A to B more efficiently.
This whole suitcase puzzle is the perfect example of what Elon Musk is talking about here. Reasoning by analogy, which is just looking at what exists and trying to make a slightly better version. That's our default setting. It's easier, it's comfortable. But first principles, that's where the real magic happens. That's where you built something new from the ground up.
So what is it really? Well, at its core, first principles thinking is a simple two-step dance: deconstruction and then reconstruction. First, you take a problem and you absolutely shatter it. You break it down into its most basic, fundamental, can't-be-argued-with truths. And then, once you have that pile of core truths, you start building a solution up from there, as if you've never seen the problem before.
Think about it like playing with Legos. You see a pre-built Lego house. That's the existing model. Now, instead of just adding a new window, you break the whole thing down into a pile of individual bricks. And this is the moment of pure potential. Because now you're not limited to building a better house. You can take those exact same bricks and build something completely different, like a rocket ship. Same parts, totally new reality.
Okay, so this isn't just some cool thought experiment. It's a proven method that has absolutely revolutionized entire industries. So let's look at the proof. We'll check out two massive examples, one with hardware you can touch and one with something as intangible as corporate culture.
Let's start with SpaceX. Before Elon Musk came along, the established truth was that rockets are just insanely expensive, period. But instead of accepting that, he went back to basics. He asked a classic first principles question. Forget the price tag. What is a rocket actually made of?
So he deconstructed it. He didn't see a giant, complex machine. He saw its fundamental building blocks: aerospace-grade aluminum alloys, some titanium, copper, carbon fiber. Then he did something shockingly simple. He just went and looked up the prices for those raw materials on the open market.
And what he found was absolutely mind-blowing. The actual raw materials for a rocket made up only about 2% of its final cost. 2%. The other 98%, the vast majority of the cost, was all tied up in the process of putting those parts together.
And that led to the core insight that changed everything. The fundamental problem wasn't that the rocket's ingredients were expensive. The problem was that you were building this incredibly complex machine and then throwing it in the ocean after one use. From that basic truth, the only logical conclusion was to make the rocket reusable. And that single idea, born from first principles, dropped the cost of getting to space by a factor of 10.
That's a revolution in hardware. But this exact same way of thinking is just as powerful for changing something you can't even see or touch, like a company's culture. Let's pivot and look at Microsoft under Satya Nadella.
So when Satya Nadella took over as CEO in 2014, Microsoft was famous for its brutal, cutthroat internal culture. Everyone was competing against each other. Now, the old way of thinking would be to just tweak the performance review system, but Nadella went deeper. He didn't ask, how do we make our culture a little bit better? He asked, what are the absolute fundamental principles of a truly great, innovative organization?
He rebuilt Microsoft's entire operating system, its culture, from a few basic human truths. Empathy, so you actually understand your customers and coworkers. Collaboration, so you break down those walls and work together. And a huge one, a growth mindset, shifting the entire company from a know-it-all culture to a learn-it-all culture. He also embedded accessibility deep into their mission, driven by his own personal experiences.
And the result of this cultural rebuild? It's just staggering. By starting from these human-first principles, Nadella didn't just make Microsoft a nicer place to work. He unleashed a tidal wave of innovation that took its market value from around $380 billion to over 3 times trillion. The proof is in the numbers.
All right, so we've seen the proof in the pudding. But how can you actually start using this? Like today. Turns out there's a brilliantly simple technique that helps you get to the core of literally any problem you're facing.
The key is to basically channel your inner 5-year-old. You know how they just keep asking that one simple question over and over again, driving you crazy? Well, that's exactly what you need to do. The technique is called the 5 whys. It's so simple, it's genius. Whatever the problem is, you just ask why. And to that answer, you ask why again. You keep peeling back the layers of the onion until you get past all the surface-level symptoms and find the actual fundamental root cause. Let's see how it works.
Check out this simple business example. A customer comes in and says, I need 50 copies. Okay. Thinking by analogy, you say, sure, and give them 50 sets of paper held together by a staple. Job done. But if you use the 5 whys, you ask, why do you need 50 copies? Answer, for a training session. Okay. Why? So people can refer back to it later. Aha! The fundamental need isn't for copies, it's for a durable, lasting reference guide. So the real solution isn't a stapled packet, it's a professionally bound document with a cover. You didn't just fulfill the request, you solved the actual problem.
And that really brings us to the core of it all, summed up perfectly by Buckminster Fuller. First principles thinking isn't about fighting the way things are now. It's about understanding the world so deeply that you can build a new model, a new solution, so powerful and so elegant that it makes the old way of doing things completely obsolete. So the only question left for you is, what reality in your world is just waiting to be made obsolete?